with Granicus and some others to where council would be able to follow legislation through the legislative process. It was layered where law would have access to a certain part of the legislation, council would have access to a part, and our citizens would have the ability to follow legislation as well. I've asked in the past, where does that stand? So I'll ask now, where does that stand? Because I think we've seen now, especially with this COVID period, we need that. We have already had residents, even when we were in our regular process, complain that they would come down and we would be voting on something and they wouldn't know about it till that day. So I think it's imperative that we do our due diligence to look at what we looked at. Wow, we started looking at this maybe 8 years ago. Gary was president at that time. The on-base, and we were looking at Granicus, because Granicus was used by Columbus, Cleveland, and Congress. But we went with on-base. So again, if we could look at the legislative tool where we would be able to follow the legislation through so that we can make our comments, we wouldn't interfere with the law department, and then citizens would be able to see what's taking place as well. There would be different access points to the legislation. And then in regards to us going live with our meetings, I know the school board has done this, where they've taken their meetings out to the community. Mr. Clerk, I think you have, I don't know if Mr. Freeman was around then, but I think you have some history of understanding when council used to do that at one time. Right. We've got this shared asset of our CLCs. If nothing else, we could plan every other meeting or at least one meeting a month until we get through COVID, where we go out into the community in our CLCs. The technology is there. The spacing is there. And if not that, we could coordinate something with the library. But just a suggestion for us to give our citizens access to their city government.
Is the space there for all the community centers? If you get 50 people at a meeting or 30 people.
For most of the high schools, they're structured that way.
All right. Thanks.
Yeah. I know, Mr. Neal, we had those conversations for some time about being able to follow the legislation as it's going along. I don't know if that's available through on-base. I'm not sure what we've looked at, but that is certainly something to be visited. Ms. Somerville, come to you now.
Okay. Thank you so much, Mr. Chair. Just to highlight a few of the major accomplishments in 2020 from Akron City Council was just the fact that we did quickly adjust to procedures of having to operate virtually through meetings. Could not have done this without the help of Sarah, our deputy clerk, who really stepped up. We love Bob, but Bob is least honest to say that I am technology challenged or technically challenged in terms of computers and things of that nature. So Sarah has stepped up in a major way and has been running our meetings virtually and setting up our Zoom links. And so we appreciate her for stepping up in the way that she did when we most needed her. Another major accomplishment for 2020 for Akron City Council is that we really did make history. For the first time, we brought all of council together to collectively work on something when we created our special committee reimagining public safety. So we did have 22 meetings. We've partnered and collaborated with the University of Akron and put out a report that all of council should be really proud of. And so we're proud of those accomplishments. As we look forward to the rest of 2021, we want to work effectively in making sure that we allocate that $100,000 per ward through our Akron City Council CARES Relief Program. You know, oftentimes we think it's going to be easy to spend $100,000, but we're going to really work effectively and diligently to make sure that every dollar goes out into the community. We have a very small window, making sure that those funds are spent by the end of this year. Another goal for Akron City Council is that we finish our reimbursements of our funds for our 2019 Akron City Council Neighborhood Partnership Grant. We had awarded grants through that program last year and COVID hit. So a lot of our nonprofits were not able to complete their projects. They weren't able to hold their community events and do the things that they had planned to do because of COVID. And so what we did is we extended those projects and giving them an opportunity to hopefully, once we've come to a place where we can be safe, they can still hold those community projects that as they planned in last year. Also, Bob alluded to it, really creating a plan for council to come back in a safe way, looking at our chambers to make sure that we have surfaces that can be easily wiped down, cleaned, and sanitized. So that is another goal, an objective that we are looking at and creating a plan to come back, but not just to come back, but to come back in a safe way. Another real plan for Akron City Council is to really create a public relations plan for council. We have to do a better job of really sharing council's story, letting our residents know of all the great things that are happening down in council chambers, finding better ways we can engage with them and keep them informed, whether that's social media or what those things might be, but really wanting to create a solid plan around public relations and getting our messaging out into the community. And another piece of that is also looking to hire an additional support staff. Again, as council continues to strive towards doing more council-led or driven initiatives, we're going to need support to handle that work. We already currently have Reimagining Public Safety. We've got our grant program. Now we have our COVID relief program. And so we're definitely going to need some help to make sure that we are running these initiatives in the ways that they would need to be. And sometimes we're going to need a little bit more extra help to do that. So we're really looking for maybe an additional support staff to help us run some of these programs. And that's really all I have, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Thank you very much, President Summers.